Title: The Last Stand of Everett Cole. It began like any other day in court. Another case, another file, another judge walking in with the certainty that he already knew the outcome before the first word was spoken. But this wasn't just another old black man standing trial. This was Everett Cole, and the lines on his face carried more than age. They carried a truth capable of rattling the very pillars of the justice system, trying to erase it. What unfolded wasn't just a legal skirmish. It was a reckoning. A duel between arrogance and history, between unchecked authority and the quiet endurance of a man who had lived long enough to see every cycle of injustice repeat. By the time the proceedings ended, someone would leave the room changed, but it wouldn't be Everett. Savannah County Courthouse held a particular kind of silence. Not peace, but a heaviness, the weight of stories silenced before they ever got told. As morning light filtered through tall arched windows, the room filled with murmurs and the shifting of bodies on wooden benches. Then the door opened, and Everett walked in. 78 years old. He moved deliberately, not slow from weakness, but measured from years of knowing when and how to carry his weight. His brown flannel shirt was buttoned to the top. His gray slacks were neatly pressed, though worn thin at the knees. On his feet, boots cracked by time but still standing tall, like him. He removed his cap at the threshold. A quiet gesture of respect. No one returned it. Whispers stirred. Another squatter. Why even waste the court's time? No one made an effort to speak softly. Everett had heard these voices before, on sidewalks, in grocery stores, from officers who asked questions only after reaching for handcuffs. But he never flinched. Not then, not now. Judge Ronald Beckett sat on the bench. 59. Barrel-chested, steel-gray hair trimmed neatly, his robe more like armor than attire. He didn't dispense justice. He delivered sentences, and he did so with finality. Beckett had sentenced more people than any judge in Savannah County, and he made no secret of how he felt about repeat offenders. To him, Everett was already guilty. He was only deciding how hard to make the fall. Next case, he barked, eyes fixed on a manila folder. The bailiff cleared his throat. Case number 882, C. The State versus Everett Cole. Charged with unlawful presence on condemned property. Everett stepped forward to the defense table. Alone. No lawyer. No family. Just a man standing with nothing but a quiet sense of right and a system built to crush it. Judge Beckett finally looked up. His smirk didn't hide his judgment. You again, he said with theatrical disbelief, flipping lazily through the file. Caught living in a condemned house on Halcyon Drive. He leaned back. Let me guess, sentimental reasons? Childhood memories. Everett said nothing. The judge chuckled. You people always have a story. But nostalgia isn't ownership, Mr. Cole. Still silence. I'll ask plainly, Beckett continued. Were you on that property? Everett nodded. Yes, Your Honor. And what were you doing there? A pause. Everett's reply came simple, steady. Sitting on the porch. A few spectators laughed. Beckett smirked. Porch of a house slated for demolition. You do understand the city owns that land now. I know what the papers say, Everett replied. But that house used to be mine. The room shifted slightly, the way it does when something unexpected cuts through routine. Used to be doesn't mean anything in this court, Beckett said. Why keep showing up somewhere you don't belong? Everett held his gaze. Because when I sit there, it's the only time the world makes sense. That quiet line landed harder than any raised voice. But Beckett wasn't interested in understanding. Feelings don't make something legal, he snapped. Law does. Everett didn't answer. He'd spent his life understanding systems that weren't built for him. The assistant district attorney stood, young, polished, and careful. The defendant, Mr. Everett Cole, was found occupying the porch of a house at 507 Halcyon Drive. Officers stated he refused to leave but did not resist. He has been cited before for entering restricted redevelopment sites. She read it like grocery items off a list. No context. No wait. Judge Beckett turned back to Everett. You've been warned. Yet here you are again. Why? Everett's voice was calm. I wasn't looking to break anything, Your Honor. I just didn't want to forget. Forget what? That you used to own a house? Beckett scoffed. That's not how the law works. You don't get to claim land just because you feel attached to it. Everett stood still, as if every word from the bench passed right through him. You think we should overlook the law just because you're old? The judge continued. Because you've got a nice voice and a quiet stare? This court runs on facts. You trespassed. The record shows no current deed, no lease, no permission. You don't own that house anymore. That may be, Everett replied, but I built it. With my hands. And my name's still on its bones. There was a quiet inhale from somewhere in the gallery. Judge Beckett slammed the folder shut. "You want pity, Mr. Cole," he said. "But what you need is a lesson. 30 days in county jail." Gasps rippled through the room. Even the prosecutor flinched. But Everett? He didn't blink. He had known this was coming. The silence that followed wasn't compliance, it was composure. There's a difference between surrender and stillness. "Do you understand your sentence?" Beckett asked. "Yes, Your Honor." "Anything else before I close this?" "No, sir." "Take him," the judge ordered. But Everett didn't move. "Before I go," he said, "may I make a phone call?" The judge laughed. "Calling a lawyer now? A bit late." "One call," Everett said. It wasn't a plea, it was a statement. The bailiff handed over his phone. Everett dialed a number from memory. No hesitation. When the line connected, he spoke 4 words. "It's time. Bring them." He handed the phone back and stood still again. Beckett rolled his eyes. "What? Your grandkids coming to protest?" Everett didn't answer. But outside, something had already begun. The courtroom fell quiet again. The kind of quiet before a storm. Then it came, the echo of heels against marble floor. Sharp, assured, growing louder. The double doors burst open. She entered. Tall, poised, confident. Clad in black, tailored perfection, Congresswoman Leona Cole, Everett's daughter, stepped into the courtroom like it was hers. Behind her, 3 attorneys from Carson, Drake and Wills, the top civil rights firm in Georgia, followed in lockstep. She didn't look at anyone, didn't ask permission. She walked straight to her father and rested a hand on his shoulder. Then faced the bench. "Your Honor," she said, her voice steady. "Before you proceed, I ask that you review this." She handed a folder to the judge. He scoffed but took it. He read. And then everything changed. Inside were deeds, affidavits, certified copies, all confirming Everett still owned partial rights to the house. A legal oversight. A bureaucratic error. A legacy forgotten. The courtroom froze. Beckett's face drained. Leona stepped forward. "My father is not a trespasser. He is a veteran, a registered owner of the disputed land, and the man who built the very home your city tried to erase him from." Beckett fumbled for words. "I wasn't aware." "You didn't want to be," she said, sharp and calm. "You looked at him and saw a case, not a person." She turned to the court. "I move that his sentence be vacated and his record cleared." "Granted," Beckett muttered, his voice hollow. "Release him," Leona added. The bailiff stepped back instantly. Reporters in the gallery began typing furiously. Beckett looked at Everett. "I apologize." Everett nodded once. "Yes, there was an oversight." He stepped forward, voice quiet but clear. "You judged me without knowing me. You erased my story with a sentence." He turned, taking Leona's arm. Together they walked out. At the courthouse steps, cameras flashed. Microphones extended. One reporter asked, "Mr. Cole, any final words?" Everett looked straight into the lens. "I didn't come here to fight. I came here to sit on the porch I built, to remember where I belong. And now, maybe, someone else will remember to ask before they accuse." And with that, he walked away. Because Everett Cole didn't need a verdict to know his worth. He carried it with him, always. In silence. In strength. In truth. The end.